All right, yo, shalom family, all praise to the Most High YAHUAH, and my name is only begotten Son Yeshua. You're locked in with Hebrew Elevation, and today we got a deep meat Bible study. Pause, right? Check it. This ain't no milk. This is some deep, detailed stuff. So just to let you know, family, if you ain't there in the Bible as yet, if you ain't really deep in the meat of the Bible as yet, then obviously this video ain't really for you. You can click off now, do some more study, and when you come to the topic of Amalek, holler back and watch this video, because the thing is, most people in both the Christian world and the Israelite world get the whole identity of the Amalekite nation completely wrong. Let me tell you this from the get-go, right? Amalekites have nothing to do with the Edomites. Amalekites are a complete separate nation to the Amalekite nation. Just because Esau had a son called Amalek doesn't automatically make the nation of Amalekites the descendants of Esau, right? But that's the conclusion that many Israelites have come to. That's the conclusion that even the Christian world has come to. But what we're going to do today is systematically prove through the Bible that Amalekites and Edomites are two completely, entirely different, unrelated nations. And you need to understand this because, especially amongst the Israelite community, there's a belief out there that the small hat people are descendants of Amalek, that the Amalekites, which is completely false, and it's going to bring you to a lot of false conclusions in the Bible, right? So let's just clear it up by diving straight into it. So let's read it and get into it. Praise the Most High. The Amalekite nation existed before Esau or his son Amalek was even born, as seen in Genesis 14, verse 7. Kadesh is part of a country of the Amalekites, according to Genesis 14, verse 7. So let's just prove real quick that the Amalekite nation existed before Esau's son Amalek even existed. So, of course, the Amalekite nation can't descend from a people that they predate, right? So this is Genesis 36, verse 12. It says, and Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Ada, Esau's wife. So right there, we can see that Esau was the father of a man called Eliphaz, and Eliphaz is the one who is the father of Amalek, right? Now in Genesis 14, this is talking about the time of Abraham, before the Edomites were born, before even Isaac was born, right? And let's see what happens. Genesis 14, verse 5, it says, and in the 14th year of Chedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him and smote the Rephaims in Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Emims in Shaveth Kirphaim, and the Horites in their Mount Seir, unto El Paran, which is by the wilderness. And they returned and came to Mishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites that dwell in Hazon Tamar. So what we can see in verse 7 is clearly showing us that the Amalekite nation existed and already had a country in the time of Genesis 14. This is before Esau even existed. This is before Amalek's grandson of Esau was even born. So clearly the Amalekites do not descend from Esau. They have nothing to do with Esau, completely unrelated, unconnected. All right, praise the Most High. And how we can also further prove this is just verse 6. It says, the Horites in their Mount Seir. So it's telling us that in this time period, the Horites were the ones that possessed Mount Seir. It says Mount Seir belonged to the Horites at this time. So we know that currently, Mount Seir belongs to the Edomites. According to the scripture, the Edomites took Mount Seir from the Horites in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 2. So already we can see we're dealing with a time period before Esau existed. And now it's telling us in this time period, it says Kadesh and smote all the country of the Amalekites. So it's telling us that at this time, Kadesh belonged to the Amalekites. It was their country. The Amalekites couldn't possess or have the country of Kadesh. They couldn't have that country if they wasn't there in that time period to possess that country, to rule over it. So moving forward, right, check this out. So just getting a bit of a geography understanding of these regions, yeah, you can see in the picture. And what we got written here, it says Moses sent the Israelites to spy out the land of Canaan from the south. Numbers chapter 13, verse 16 to 17. These are the names of the men which Moses sent to spy out the land. And Moses called O'Shea, the son of Nun, Jeshua. And Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and said unto them, get you up this way southward, and go up into the mountain. So remember that he told them to go southward. And now we're going to understand what that means. The Israelites began searching Canaan from the wilderness of Zin. This shows that Zin is considered the south of Canaan. Numbers 13, 21. So they went up and searched the land from the wilderness of Zin, and unto Rehob, as men come to Hamath. So Moses said to them, go up southward. And when they went up, they went into Zin. So we can already learn that, wilderness of Zin is considered south, right? This is now the wilderness of Zin is in Kadesh. Check this out. Kadesh is the land of Amalekites, according to Genesis 14, as we saw before. So Numbers 33 and 36, and they removed from Ezon Gabir and pitched in the wilderness of Zin, which is Kadesh. So it just told you that the wilderness of Zin is Kadesh, right? So that means that Kadesh is in the south, all right? And that also shows us that they've gone up into Amalekite country. In Numbers chapter 13, they've entered the land of Canaan through going into the land of the Amalekites. Now let's see what unfolds with this information. So it says here, when the Israelites returned to Moses, they went to the wilderness of Paran, which is the Amalekite land of Kadesh. So now when they come back to Moses to return and tell him what they found in the land, let's see where they've come to. Numbers 13:26, and they went and came to Moses and to Aaron and to all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them and unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. So what we can see here is Moses and the Israelites are pitched in the land of Kadesh, the land of the Amalekites, specifically in the region of Paran. And this region here is the region of Paran, where you can see the mouse, okay? And they went up to the wilderness of Zin, all within the country of the Amalekites. So this whole time in Numbers 13, the Israelites are in the Amalekite land, because Kadesh belongs to the Amalekites, according to Genesis 14 and 7. So the Amalekites are said to dwell in the south, according to Numbers 13:29. Look, he says, the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. So now he's just reporting which people live in this region. So he's saying, look, these Amalekites live in the south land, which is wilderness of Zin, and also is, that whole land of Kadesh, which we can see is Paran. Now it says, according to Numbers 13, verse 7 to 21, Zin is in the south, and according to Numbers 33:36, Zin is Kadesh. So he's saying that Amalekites dwell in the southland. So basically saying they dwell in Kadesh, right? Numbers 13, verse 17 says, and Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and said unto them, go you up this way southward, and go unto the mountain, go up into the mountain. So they went up and searched the land from the wilderness of Zin unto Rehob, as men come to Hamath, the Amalekites, the Amalekites, and they removed from Ezengaba and pitched in the wilderness of Zin, which is Kadesh. So just reaffirming that information. The wilderness of Zin, that desert of Zin, is Kadesh, and that's the way they went into. They went into the wilderness of Zin, so that means they went up by Zin. And Moses said, go up to the south. So Zin is the south, Zin is Kadesh. They entered the land by Kadesh. They're in the Amalekite land. So this says, this shows that when the Israelites said that the Amalekites dwell in the south, Numbers 13:29, it means they dwell in Kadesh. So this is reaffirming that Genesis 14 information, right? So check this out, Numbers 13:29. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. Kadesh is the land of Genesis 14 and 7. Amalekites, this shows that the Numbers 13 Amalekites are the same nation as Genesis 14, and that they are not Edomites. So what we're going to learn right here, families, we're just establishing this continuity of understanding this land of Kadesh belongs to the Amalekites, and that the Amalekite, or the land that the Israelites are in now, is the same land that belonged to the Amalekites in Genesis 14 and 7, as we can see. And they returned and came to En Mishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites that dwell in Hazon Tamar. So let's see what happens to the Israelites as they dwell in the Amalekite land here. So it says, Moses warned the Israelites to travel away from these Amalekites. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwelt in the valley. Tomorrow turn you and get you into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. Moses told the Israelites to avoid the Amalekites, because YAHUAH wouldn't help them in battle. Numbers 14:42. Go not up, for the Lord is not among you, that ye be not smitten before your enemies. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you, and ye shall fall by the sword, because ye are turned away from YAHUAH. Therefore YAHUAH will not be with you. The Israelites fought the Amalekites and lost. So Moses is saying, don't have no smoke with the Amalekites. The Amalekites will win. But Numbers 14 and 44 says, but they presumed to go up unto the hilltop. Nevertheless, the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah and Moses departed not out of the camp. Then the Amalekites came down, and the Canaanites which dwelt in the hill, and smote them, and discomfited them, even unto Hormah. So we can see right there, the Amalekites beat the Israelites right there. And, you know, this map is a bit too small for you to even make out all of this, you know, map that I'm trying to show you. But anyway, let's just keep it moving, man. So this right here says, the congregation of Israel abode in Kadesh, the land of the Amalekites. So Numbers chapter 20 and verse 1. So this is one of the key points we're getting to right now, just to establish that the Amalekites are not Edomites. Because so far what we were just doing is we're just establishing that the Israelites are now dealing with the Amalekites of Genesis 14, right? Now let's see what happens in Numbers 20 that proves objectively that these Amalekites that the Israelites are dealing with are not Edomites. Check it out. So Numbers 20 verse 1 says, then came the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, into the desert of Zin in the first month, and the people abode in Kadesh. So clearly, you know, desert of Zin is Kadesh, south country, and Miriam died there and was buried there. While in the land of the Amalekites, Israel sent messengers to the Edomites asking if they can pass through their land. This demonstrates that Edomites are a completely different people with a completely different nation and land to that of Esau. Okay, let's see. So it says, Numbers 20 and verse 14, and Moses sent messengers from Kadesh unto the king of Edom. Thus saith thy brother Israel, thou knowest all the travail that hath befallen us, how our fathers went down into Egypt, and we have dwelt in Egypt a long time, and the Egyptian vexed us and our fathers. And when we cried unto Yahuwah, he heard our voice and sent an angel and have brought us forth out of Egypt. And behold, we are in Kadesh, a city in the uttermost of thy border. So now the Israelites are writing from Moses to the Edomites saying, yo, Edomites, let us pass through your land. And he's saying, yo, and where we're located now, Edom, is we're at the border of your land, which shows that the land of Amalek, the land of Kadesh, where the Israelites were, was not the land of the Edomites. It was a completely separate territory. There were two separate nations which bordered each other. Amalek bordered Esau, and now the Israelites are in the territory, the land of the Amalekites, asking the Edomites, can they pass through the land of the Edomites? So they're complete different nations. Now let's see how the Edomites received this message. So he says, let us pass, I pray thee, through thy country. It says, can we pass through your country, through the Edomite country, showing that Amalekite country is not Edomite country. But if Amalek is the son of Esau right here, the Amalekite country would be Edomite country, because Amalek in Genesis chapter 36 and 12 is an Edomite. But anyway, nonetheless, it says, let us pass, I pray thee, through thy country. We will not pass through the fields or through the vineyards, neither will we drink of the water or by wells. We will go by the king's highway. We will not turn to the right hand nor to the left until we have passed thy borders. And Edom said unto him, thou shalt not pass by me, lest I come out against thee with the sword. And the children of Israel said unto him, we will go by the highway. And if I and my cattle drink of thy water, then I will pay for it. I will only, without doing anything else, go through on my feet. So he's pleading, yo, can I please pass through your land, please? And the Edomites are not having it. So clearly, the Israelites can't be in the Edomite land when they're in Kadesh, because we're getting the whole idea that Edomites hate the Israelites so much at this point. There's no way an Edomite will have an Israelite in their land, because they're not even letting them pass through, okay? So how can the Amalekite land be the land of the Edomites if the Israelites are in the Amalekite land as they're right into the Edomites? And, you know, they're not having no problems in the Amalekite land. You know, only when they went looking for problems were they having problems, because they went and started to fight the Amalekites right there. But anyway, let's get it. Verse 20 says, and he said, thou shalt not go through. And Edom came out against him with much people and with a strong hand. Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through his border. So that shows that the border or the land of Kadesh was not the border of Edom. It had nothing to do with the Edomites, didn't belong to them. Okay, because the Edomites protected their border. They never protected Kadesh. Wherefore Israel turned away from him, and the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, journeyed from Kadesh and came unto Mount Hor. So Mount Hor is another area in the land of Kadesh. You can just look at the map on that. So now you see the Israelites are just staying in Kadesh, man, because Kadesh is safe. The Edomites are not trying to kill them in Kadesh because it's not their land. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in Mount Hor by the coast of the land of Edom, saying, so yeah, man, it even just said there, look, Kadesh and Mount Hor is in the coast of the land of Edom, is the border of the land of Edom. So the Amalekite land is the coast or border of the Edomite land, two different nations, right? And we can see here Mount Hor is right there next to Kadesh Barnea in the wilderness of Zin. And if you look on this other map, you can see that Edom borders Mount Hor, Edom borders Kadesh, two different nations, two different regions. So this is Yah commanded King Saul to kill the Amalekites as revenge, 1 Samuel 15 verse 2 to verse 3, for what they did to Israel when Israel came out of Egypt and Amalek fought the nation in Rephidim. Exodus chapter 17 and verse 8, because, you know, in Exodus 15, the Israelites get, you know, delivered out of Egypt. And then just 2 chapters later, the Amalekites are trying to kill the Israelites. But check this out. 1 Samuel 15 verse 2. Thus saith Yahuwah of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. Exodus chapter 17 verse 8. Let's see when the, you know, Amalekites, you know, incurred this wrath of the Most High, because now, you know, King Saul is enacting the judgment and the revenge of the Most High in 1 Samuel 15. Let's see what this was all based upon. Exodus 17 verse 8. Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim, and Moses said unto Joshua, choose us out men and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with a rod of God in mine hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him, and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass, when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed, and when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat thereon. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hand, the one on one side and the other on the other side, and his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. Always help your bros out, man. That's the message there. And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heaven. So after the Amalekites did that and the Israelites beat them, the Most High said, look, I'm going to wipe out the Amalekite nation, because it was so terrible what they tried to do to the Israelites in this passage here. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it YAHUAH Nissi, for he said, behold, Yahuwah hath sworn that Yahuwah will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. So Most High declared perpetual war against Amalek. Yahuwah commanded Israel to blot out the remembrance of Amalek. So we're going to get some more context of what the Amalekites did in Exodus 17 here. It says, for what they did to Israel in Exodus 17 verse 8 to 16. Deuteronomy 25 and 17 says, remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way when ye were come forth out of Egypt, how he met thee by the way, and smote the hindmost of thee, even all that were feeble behind thee, when thou wast faint and weary, and he feared not God. So this is what the Amalekites did, man. They killed all the weak and the old and the tired people of Israel that were at the back of the congregation, because obviously Israel's marching as a whole unit. So it says that, you know, these Amalekites picked off the stragglers that were the Israelites at the back. You know what I'm saying? So the Most High was upset that, you know, the Amalekites took out all, you know, the less strong Israelites. It says, therefore it shall be, when Yahuwah thy God hath given thee rest from all thine enemies round about in the land which Yahuwah thy Elohim giveth thee for an inheritance to possess it, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven, thou shalt not forget it. So the Most High saying, when I bring you to the promised land and you're chilling, then go and take vengeance on the Amalekites. And that's exactly what happens here in 1 Samuel 15 with King Saul when he gets the kingdom. It says, thus saith Yahuwah of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel. So the Most High remembers the people that do things to Israel, and the Most High holds it against them, and he's waiting for vengeance. How he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go up and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. Genesis 14:7 says, shows that the Amalekites have lived in Kadesh from the time of Abraham. So yeah, as we know in Genesis 14:7, Kadesh is the land of the Amalekites, and that's a long time ago they've been living in that land, okay, even from the time of Amalek. So this is going to be key for this. Genesis chapter 25:17-18 shows that Ishmaelites lived in the land from Havilah to Shur. So check this out. This is all going to tie in. Genesis 25:17, and these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he gave up the ghost and died and was gathered unto his people. And they dwelt from Havilah unto Shur, that is before Egypt. So it says the people of Ishmael, the Ishmaelites, they lived from Havilah to Shur, that land which is in front of Egypt. So it's just this little triangular region that you can see there, yeah? As thou goest toward Assyria, and he died in the presence of all his brethren. So this is 1 Samuel 15:7. It says, shows that the Amalekites that King Saul smote lived in the same region as the Ishmaelites. So you're about to see that these Amalekites also live in that same region that the Ishmaelites live in. So 1 Samuel 15:7-8 says, and Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah until thou comest to Shur, that is over against Egypt. So where did King Saul smite the Amalekites? From Havilah until Shur, which is on the other side of Egypt, it's opposite Egypt. And Genesis 25:18 says that's the same land that the Ishmaelites live in, Havilah to Shur. Okay, now it says, and he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive. So now Agag is the title of the Amalekite king, just like Pharaoh's the title of the king of Egypt, or Caesar is the title of the king of Rome, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. 1 Samuel 27:8 says, shows that these Amalekites, who King David also came against, had lived in the land Shur since ancient times. So now what we can see, a couple chapters after King Saul, destroys the Amalekites. Now King David is fighting the Amalekites, and look what happens when King David fights these same Amalekites. And David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites and the Gezerites and the Amalekites, for those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. So the scripture just said that the Amalekites had inhabited that land from Shur to Egypt from old. And the word old there is the Hebrew word olam, which means ancient times, man. So that is showing us that these Amalekites had been in that land for a long time, and it makes sense because this land of Shur, going all the way up to Egypt and all of this is the, it connects with the land of Kadesh. So clearly the Amalekites live in more than just the land of Kadesh. But this is placing these Amalekites as the same Amalekites as Genesis 14 and verse 7. And we know they lived in that land from ancient times because they were living there since the times of Abraham in Genesis 14. But the Amalek, son of Esau, they hadn't been living there from ancient times. So just the fact that it says the Amalekites lived in this region from ancient times is inconsistent with Esau's son being, the Amalekites, because Esau's son hadn't been living in this region from ancient times. Matter of fact, the Edomites' borders were in the land of Edom. The Edomites never inhabited the land from Shur to Havilah. They never had this land. There's no scripture that says that the Edomites or the Amalekites that descend from Edom, there's no verse that says, Edomites had anything to do with this land or inhabited this land since ancient times. So now we can see that the Amalekites that David's dealing with is a well-established nation that inhabited that region for a long time, and they're the same Amalekites that King Saul fought, and King Saul fought these Amalekites. Why? Because of what they did in Exodus 17. So it's connecting all of this together, these one consistent Amalekite nation that always lived in this region that was never given to Edom or has any connection with Esau's son Amalek. So this is Hagar was found at the fountain / well, which was on the road to Shur. Genesis 16:7, and the angel of YAHUAH found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. So as we can see, we remember that, Shur and Havilah is opposite Egypt. Now Hagar, the mother of Ishmael, is in that region. So it makes sense that that is the land that Ishmael lived in, as we could see in the book of Genesis 25:18. Now it says here, Genesis chapter 16:14, wherefore the well was called Beer-lahai, behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. So now it's saying that, this well is in between Kadesh and Bered, right? So now it's connecting Kadesh with that land of Shur. So now we understand why King David was fighting these Amalekites as you go to Shur. And, also Samuel was, King Saul was, because Shur is between Kadesh and Bered. So this is all well entrenched in that region of the Amalekites, which we can see in Genesis 14 and 7, belongs to the Amalekite nation that pre-existed Esau, man. So now this is Genesis 24 and 62. It says, and Isaac came from the way of a well, Laroihai, for he dwelt in the south country. So remember who dwells in the south country again, family? In the south country, we know that Amalekites dwelt in the south country according to Numbers chapter 13, right? And that was the wilderness of Zin. And now it's saying that this well of Laroihai is in the south country. And we just saw that well of Laroihai in Genesis 16 and 14 is in between Kadesh and Bered. So it's connecting all of this region. We can see Isaac is in the region of the Amalekites in Genesis 24. And so was, what's the name? Hagar. So anyway, moving forward, check this out. You can see on the map right there, like the way of Shur, or the path to Shur, we can see Belaroihai right there in between Shur and Zin. And we can see Paran right there. Paran is also the desert part of the Amalekite land, as we see in Numbers chapter 13. Okay, so we can see that, look, man, this is a whole Amalekite region that is being dealt with, that was established even in the time of Isaac, which is completely independent to the land of Esau. Before Esau, he was even born. So Genesis 20 verse 1 says, and Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur and sojourned in Gerar. Okay, so now Abraham's in between Kadesh and Shur, man. And Kadesh is, the land of the country of the Amalekites, according to Genesis 14 and 7. Okay, and Shur is also the land where the Amalekites dwelt and were smote by King David and by King Saul in the book of 1 Samuel 15 and 1 Samuel 27. Okay, so we're really fleshing out the whole region that these Amalekites, who are not Edomites, lived in. So now check this out. It reads, these verses here all list the Amalekites as their own nation, separate from the nation of Edom. So 1 Samuel 14, 47 to 48. So Saul took the kingdom over and fought against his enemies on every side, against Moab are their own nation, and against the children of Ammon are their own nation, and against Edom is their own nation, and against the kings of Zobah's their own nation, and against the Philistines, that's their own nation. And whitherso he turned, he vexed them, and he gathered an host and smote the Amalekites. So it's separating the Amalekites from the Edomites, clearly making them their own individual nation that has no connection to the Edomites, just like the Moabites and the Ammonites don't have a connection to Edom, neither does Amalek, because they're never presented as being a connective nation. They're only ever presented as being separate nations. So it listed 7 nations there, and the Amalekites were their own set-apart nation. And it says, and delivered Israel out of the hands of them that spoiled them. So now check, the same thing happens here as a second witness. 1 Chronicles 18:11. Them also King David dedicated unto Yahuwah with the silver and the gold, for that he brought from all these nations. So now David's listing separate nations: from Edom, one separate nation, and from Moab, another separate nation, and from the children of Ammon, third separate nation, and from the Philistines, fourth separate nation, and from Amalek, fifth separate nation. Amalek is always described as its own individual, independent nation to Edom, showing no affiliation, no continuity of nationality between Edom and Amalek. They're 2 separate nations. The only thing they have in common is, hey, once upon a time, Esau had a son called Amalek. Isn't that interesting? But nothing deeper than that. Psalm chapter 83, verse 6, the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, so tabernacles of Edom is a separate nation to the Ishmaelites, of Moab, separate nation, and the Hagarenes, a separate nation, of Gebal and Ammon, separate nations, and Amalek, a separate nation, and the Philistines were the inhabitants of Tyre. So you can see right there, they're all separate nations. Amalek is always described as a separate nation in the Bible. Don't make this conclusion that they're connected. They're clearly not. So now Amalekites and Agagites are not Edomites. Check this out. So Esau had a son named Amalek to his concubine Timnah, and Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Ada, Esau's wife. Amalek was one of many of the dukes that governed the Edomites in the land of Edom. So you're going to see that Amalek ruled over the land of Edom. Yeah, and the border of the land of Edom was Kadesh. So Amalek never had that land called Kadesh. He never had that land called Shur to Havilah. So how can he be the father of the people that inhabit that land if that was never his border? Check this out. Genesis chapter 36, verse 16 says, Duke Korah, Duke Gatam, and Duke Amalek. So that was his title as a leader, as a duke, which means to be a governor. These are the dukes that came of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Ada. So clearly, Amalek was ruling over the land of Edom, not ruling over the land of the Amalekites or, the land of Kadesh of Genesis 14 and 7. It says duke means governor. So we get that same word for duke come up in Zechariah 12 and 5. It says, and the governors of Judah. It could even say the dukes of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength in the Lord of hosts, their God. Now, this is Amalek and his descendants were considered Edomites, not Amalekites, as they were dukes over Edom, Genesis 36 and 19, and governed and inhabited the land of Edom. All right. So basically, the Amalek, son of Esau, he was the ruler over the land of Edom. He governed the land of Edom. He had nothing to do with the land of Kadesh. It was out of his jurisdiction. It was not the land of Amalek's people. Genesis 36 and 16, these are the sons of Esau, who is Edom, and these are their dukes. Duke Magdal, Duke Iram, these be the dukes of Edom according to their habitation in the land of their possession. He is Esau, the father of the Edomites. It literally just said the dukes of Edom, they were dukes according to the land that they lived in, the land of their inheritance, their possession. So Duke Amalek would only rule over the land of Edom. He had nothing to do with Shur to Havilah. He was not part of those Amalekites that smoked the Israelites in Rephaim, or that King Saul and King David beat in Shur to Havilah. Two completely different nations of completely different jurisdictions and regions of governance. This is now Amalek, and the rest of the dukes were not kings over Edom. The first king of Edom was Bela, son of Beor. So Genesis 36 to 31. And these are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom. Before there reigned any king of the children of Israel. And Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and the name of his city was Dinahaba. The Amalekites Sulphur are not the same descendants of Esau, whose son Amalek governed over Edom in the land of Edom. We know this because when King Saul came to fight against Amalek in one of their cities, he fought them from Havilah to Shur. 1 Samuel 15 verse 5 to 7. These regions are not in the inheritance of Esau, which Amalek and the other Edomite dukes governed and lived in. 1 Samuel 15:7, and Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah until thou comest to Shur, that is over against Egypt. So that was the land that the Amalekites were in, but the dukes of Edom didn't reign over that land, neither did the kings. That had nothing to do with them. So who were these Amalekites here? Separate nation. Genesis 36 to 16, Duke Korah, Duke Gatam, and Duke Amalek, these are the dukes that came of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. They were coming as dukes in the land of Edom, not in the land of the Amalekites of Kadesh. These were the sons of Ada. Genesis 36 and 43, Duke Magdal, Duke Iram, these be the dukes of the land, dukes of Edom, according to their habitation in the land of their possession. He is Esau, father of the Edomites. The king of the Amalekites was known by the royal title Agag, 1 Samuel 15:20. And Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed the voice of YAHUAH, and have gone the way which YAHUAH hath sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of the Amalekites, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. So the king of Amalek was always called Agag. That was his title, just like Pharaoh was always the title of the king of Egypt. Another proof that the Amalekites King Saul for are not Edomites, but descend from Esau's son Amalek, is that these Amalekites were ruled by a king who had the title of Agag. However, Amalek, son of Esau, was a duke, not a king, known as Agag. Okay, two completely different titles for two completely different countries and two different cultures with different honorific titles for their leaders. Okay, there's no cultural continuity between the Edomites and the Amalekites, two entirely different cultures. Just like the Edomites wouldn't call their kings Pharaoh, the Edomites wouldn't call their kings Agag. It was an Amalekite custom. 1 Samuel 15:7. And Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah until thou comest to Shur, that is over against Egypt. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. Genesis 36:16, Duke Korah, Duke Gatam, and Duke Amalek. These are the dukes that came of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Ada. So we can see the Edomites were calling their leaders dukes at that time. They weren't calling them Agag. Genesis 36:31. And these are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom before there reigned any king over the children of Israel. And Bela, the son of Beer, reigned in Edom, and the name of his city was Dinhabah. So we see there was kings over Edom. And what do we call those kings? Were those kings called Agag? Were they ever called Agag? Have you got a single scripture that calls that Edomite king Agag? Do you have that? Let's see it. There is no biblical record of a king of Edom being called Agag. Scripture shows that the king of Edom had no special royal title. The kings of Edom were simply called the king. And we got all the verses listed, Numbers 20 and 14. And Moses sent messengers from Kadesh unto the king of Edom, not to the Agag. Thus saith thy brother Israel, thou knowest all the travail that hath befallen us. So if he was called Agag, it would have said, Moses sent messages to Agag, just like it would have said Moses sent messages to Pharaoh. Okay, Judges chapter 11:17. Then Israel sent messengers unto the king of Edom again, okay, saying, let me, I pray thee, pass through thy land. But the king of Edom would not hearken thereto, and in like manner they sent unto the king of Moab, but he would not consent, and Israel abode in Kadesh. 2 Kings 3:9. So the king of Israel went, and the king of Judah, and the king of Edom, and they fetched a compass of 7 days' journey, and there was no water for the host, for the cattle that followed them. 2 Kings 3:26. And when the king of Moab saw that the battle was too sore for him, he took with him 700 men and drew swords to break through even unto the king of Edom, but they could not. 2 Kings 3:12. And Jehoshaphat, the word of YAHUAH is with him. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Edom went down to him. Amos chapter 2 verse 1. Thus saith YAHUAH, for 3 transgressions of Moab, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he burned the bones of the king of Edom into lime. Notice how the king of Edom is consistently the king of Edom, never the Agag of Edom. We know that the Amalekites of 1 Samuel 15 are the descendants of the Amalekites of Exodus 17, because Yah told King Saul to fight them because of what their ancestors had done in Exodus 17. 1 Samuel 15:2. Thus saith YAHUAH of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. The reason why we know that the Amalekites of 1 Samuel 15 and Exodus 17 are not Edomites is because the Amalekites Saul fought did not rule over the land of Edom. They actually ruled from the land of Shur to Havilah. Because if these Amalekites, were actually, Edomites, King Saul would have been fighting in Edom. That's where Amalek was had jurisdiction. Because look, 1 Samuel 15:7. And Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah until thou comest to Shur, that is over against Egypt. Nothing to do with Edomites' land right there. Edomites were not given that land. The scripture says that the kings and dukes of Edom inhabited and ruled over the land of Edom, not the land of Havilah to Shur. Genesis 36:31-32. And these are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom before there reigned any king over the children of Israel. Genesis 36-43. Duke Magdil, Duke Iram, these be the dukes of Edom according to their habitations in the land of their possession. He is Esau, the father of the Edomites. Look, the dukes reigned according to their dwelling place, the habitation, which was in the land of their possession, not Shur to Havilah. This proves that Haman, who was known as an Agagite in the book of Esther, was of Amalek royal lineage, not Edomite. Because many Israelites made the false premise that Haman was an Edomite because he's called an Agagite, but no. Haman was an Amalekite, which is not an Edomite, just an Amalekite, the people that fought against Israel in Exodus 17. Esther 3:10, and the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. Okay, so showing that Haman was a king. He was the king of Amalek. Okay, 1 Samuel 15:20. And Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed the voice of YAHUAH, and have gone the way which YAHUAH sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. Okay, there we can see that honorific title is again, the king of Amalek called Agag. Now, knowing that the Amalekites and Agag, Amalekite kings, are not Edomites, shows us that prophecies against Agag and Amalek have nothing to do with the nation of Edom. For example, check. It says, he shall pour the water out of his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters, and his king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. So now it's talking about, Agag as the king of Amalek and showing that he had a high kingdom, but Yeshua's kingdom will be higher than it. So it's like saying your king will be higher than Caesar, your king will be higher than Pharaoh, because Agag is an honorific title for a king only ever used in the Amalekite nation and culture, nothing to do with Edom. Numbers 24 and 20, and when he looked on Amalek, he took up this parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. So he's prophesying against the punishment of Amalek. Exodus 17 and 16, for he said, behold, YAHUAH hath sworn that YAHUAH will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. So the Most High is an enemy to Amalek. Amalek and the other dukes of Edom all ruled from the land of Seir in Edom. And these are the generations of Esau, the father of Edom. Edomites in Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's son Eliphaz, the son of Ada, the wife of Esau. So you can see, look, man, the Edomites were in Mount Seir, nothing to do with the Amalekite land of Kadesh. Reuel, the son of Basma, the wife of Esau, and the sons of Eliphaz were Tema, Opha, Zepho, and Gatam, and Kenaz, and Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Ada, Esau's wife. All right, so we see Amalek right there, and that's the only connection you've got to the Amalekites is just, because their name's Amalek. That's how deep it goes, family. There's nothing deeper to prove that Amalek is the father of the Amalekite nations, more than just his name. Genesis 36 and 30, Duke Dishon, Duke Ezer, Duke Dishan, these are the dukes that came of Hori among their dukes in the land of Seir. So look, man, dukes rule over their land, okay, and the Horites ruled over their land of Seir, and the Edomites ruled over their land when they had it. Genesis 36 and 43, Duke Magdil, Duke Iram, these be the dukes of Edom according to their habitations in the land of their possession. He is Esau, the father of Edomites. So you know that point now. So praise the Most High. And yeah, that's it, man. Hallelujah. So yeah, willing, let us know in the chat what you thought of that. Did you understand it? Yeah, willing. Hopefully you know right now that the Edomites and the Amalekites, they got nothing to do with each other, family. Genesis 14 and 7 already just showed you, like, look, bro, they already had the land before Esau was even born. Okay, so with that we say, Yah bless, shalom.